spiritual
some
authority.
dramatic conversion or something.
Yes. Or if an angel appears saying, well, you should study theology or some other career, so I am in a higher level. That's not the case. Actually, speaking to Thomas in John chapter 20, verse 29, Jesus said, Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. So the highest stage of faith, if we can speak about levels of faith, I think it's a little bit dangerous, but is when you trust even if there are no evidences, concrete evidences in your way. So some people question, I am called to the ministry. I have no specific sign that I was called.
Give yourself 28 days.
It's worthwhile for us to look what Ellen White says in the book Acts of the Apostles, page 328. She says that the highest evidence that somebody is called to the ministry is leading people to surrender their lives to Christ in being sanctified by His power. So it's not performing miracles or something like that, but really leading people to be transformed in the image and likeness of Christ.
You know, what you just said brought to mind that, yes, God may not call in the burning bush and so forth, but there are certain calling that God has on our lives that is already plainly in the Bible, and we don't need to wait for an angel from heaven or for harps to tell you that your mission as a follower of Jesus is to make disciples. It is already clear. So if you are in that space of trying to figure out, Lord, what do you want me to do? What is my purpose? What is my calling? Matthew 28 already made it clear in black and white. Take that first step, and then God will reveal the rest.
You touched the point, really. This call, I understand, it's for everybody.
That's right. Amen.
And if we continue in our excuses, actually we make God a liar. He doesn't know what He's calling us. He doesn't know the future. Or in other words, we put ourselves above God. And this is a very dangerous ground. And allow me to read one of the quotes of Ellen White. It's from the Patriarchs and Prophets, page 255. And I quote, he, or Moses, was overwhelmed with a sense of his incapacity to be a mouthpiece for God to Israel. But then she puts this conjunction, but it completely changes the picture, and let me continue reading. But having once accepted the work, he entered upon it with his whole heart, putting all his trust in the Lord. And I continue reading. God blessed his ready obedience, and he became eloquent, hopeful, self-possessed, and well fitted for the greatest work ever given to man.
That's incredible. That is incredible. And you know, it talks about, you were reading page 255, and right before that in page 254, it says that Moses complaining of his unfitness after God told him that he would empower him actually showed distrust of God. So Moses had this struggle, but then as he said, then he got through it and responded with ready obedience, and we see this incredible, leader who is going to take on this greatest work ever given. And yet, we only have just a moment to touch on this, but it's interesting in the lesson. It brings out the story of the circumcision of his son, how there was something still standing in the way, and Moses was threatened to have his ministry ended. And Moses was threatened to have his ministry ended. So does anybody want to just briefly touch on this idea of that circumcision story?
This story reminds me of a quote I heard from a lady where she said, don't put a Bible under your arm until you've swept under your bed. She's not, being literal in that. Maybe there is some literal point to that. But it's basically saying to pay attention to the little things. Just because Moses was being obedient in a major call in his life, it did not exempt him from being obedient in what he would have perceived as something minor. You may be out in church preaching, being a missionary out there, which is good, but are you being obedient to God at home? Are you doing the small things that he has called you to do? And so that's one of the things that stick out in the story.
Excellent point. I think from this idea of the call of Moses, just to kind of bring this together, I want to emphasize something. We talked about how the presence of God is what makes something holy. It's also true, according to Scripture, that it's only the presence of God that brings us joy. Right? In your presence is fullness of joy, we read in Psalm 16. So there is no joy for us when we resist the call of God. The only true happiness in life is when you respond positively to the call of God. So, do you feel like you understand this lesson this week? You feel like you got a good grasp on it? Well, we're going to find out because it's time for a quiz. It's time for a quiz. Maybe you feel like this young man, I don't know. But let's see how you respond. Number one, this is fill in the blank. Blank brings down the average age of our Sabbath school panel. Felicia, that's right. She also raises the IQ, but anyway, she brings down the average age. Number two, good for you who answered correctly, Felicia. Moses wasted 40 years of his life as a mundane shepherd in Midian. True or false? False. Wow.